Thank you, everyone. We're going to go out of order a little bit because application 2 and 3 are requesting a holdover. So that's for Homeland, we'll do one at a time. Application 2 is Homeland Towers LLC, SMSA Limited Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, and that's, so I will look for a motion to hold that over.
Motion to hold over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then application number 3, Homeland Towers LLC, this is the same applicant but different location at Dixon. I'll look for a motion to hold that over.
Motion to hold over.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay? So, folks, if you're here for those applications, if you don't mind, I'll give a little time to clear the room, unless you want to stick around. Okay, we've got a full house. All right, next application is a holdover from last month, is number 4. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the first one on the agenda.
Yes.
Is Genic Property Management Corp. for use variance seeking permission to install 2 30,000-gallon above-ground liquid propane storage tanks on precast piers, 2 bobtail fill stanchions, and 1 transport unload stanchion in a residential zone. Property is located at 16 Route 6N, Mahopac, New York, 10541, and tax map 8516-1-20. Counsel? And by the way, I want to remind everyone to speak clearly into the mic as it's being recorded for record. And Greg, I don't need to swear you in, your counsel. Is anybody else going to be speaking?
Yes, we brought our consultant on the project, Matt Campano. He's going to address the safety issues that came up at the last meeting, so.
Okay, I'll swear him in when he steps up.
Sure.
Okay, this is a holdover from last month. I believe the biggest reasoning for the holdover is we did not get any financial burden information, and we did not get any prior to this meeting. Are you prepared to present that tonight?
Yes, when the last time we were here, there was some discussion on our part regarding the financial aspects of it. We prepared and submitted a memo, which I'll just briefly recap for you regarding the finances on the project.
Okay, is there any information that is prepared to be handed out to the board members to?
I submitted a memorandum to the board,
Memorandum.
and it contains the financial stuff in it.
When was it submitted?
Friday?
Last week?
Yeah.
I don't think we got anything from Dawn. All right, why don't we, in the interest of hearing it, why don't you bring us through it?
I'm sorry, so you guys don't have that memorandum?
It's in
We
our
got
packet
it today.
tonight.
Oh,
but
okay,
It
okay.
wasn't sent prior to, for
I
giving
gotcha.
us time to read it.
Gotcha, okay. Well, I can summarize it for the board. We purchased the property and the personalty there for $800,000. At the time of that purchase, my client took a mortgage for $640,000. Based upon the debt service of that mortgage, the taxes as well as the insurances, we have expenses of $111,374 per year. The memorandum sets forth the rents that we are currently collecting on the property from the various tenants, and shows that our rental income is about $91,800. It's leaving us with a shortfall of $19,574.42 per year. What the applicant is proposing is that if this application is granted, they would lease the area of the property where it's proposed to install the propane tanks to Action Fuel, and rent would be collected from Action Fuel of $27,000 per year, which would at least make the property marginally profitable for my client. Now, one of the things that we noted in the memorandum and needed to note in the memorandum is other potential uses for the property. So we've gone through any of the other uses that are allowed in the residential zoning district based upon the bulk tables for the town of Carmel. If this were to be developed as a residence, it would only yield one residence, which we would have to tear down and remove the building that is already on the property. The other uses that are allowed in the residential zoning district are municipal buildings, town parks, that type of thing. So really, in terms of a use for this property and showing dollars and cents as to highest and best use, it would certainly be as the property is currently constructed. We then went on in the memorandum to talk about or address the other variance standards. One of the things that you have to address when you are looking for a use variance is you have to show that there are no other similarly situated properties, because, you know, the board would you know, be remiss if it were to grant a use variance to us and then see everybody else running in with the same or a similar application. And this, I think, is definitely a very unique property in the sense that it has been operating since 1967 as a commercial property. In fact, when it was originally developed, this was not a residential district. It was something that was rezoned by the town sometime later. We also addressed whether this was going to create some sort of a change in the character of the neighborhood. We do not believe that it will, based upon the fact that this is already a commercial site, operating commercially. We've talked about traffic coming in and out of there. We do not anticipate a large increase in the traffic coming in and out of there with this use. Basically, we would fill these tanks only periodically, and the tanks or the trucks that would be delivering propane would pick up the propane in the morning, go out on their runs, and then come back in the evening time. Okay? There was a lot of discussion here at the last meeting regarding the safety. It was not something, we didn't bring our consultant with us at the last meeting, because at that time, we had gone through a safety review at the planning board level. There was discussion there with the planning board about the safety features that are built into this. And, but hearing the public's comments as well as the board's, we have Matt Campano with us today. He's the consultant for the project. They developed these sites and have been working with us to develop the site. So I'd like to turn it over to him, if I may, and just let him go through the safety features that are built into the site. Let him inform the board on that.
Certainly.
Okay?
Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Matthew Campano. I live at 7 Farley Road in Hollis, New Hampshire.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Before I get started, does the board have anything specific? Does the board have anything
You can turn it to your mouth.
specific around safety that came up? I wasn't here at the last meeting. Were there any specific things that you wanted to discuss before I did kind of an overview on the plant and its safety
I
features?
think a lot of the public brought some safety matters up, and I think there was a fireman who was actually very proficient in propane expertise. I don't know if that gentleman's here tonight, but I haven't opened to the public yet. But
Okay.
if any of the board members might have some opinions or recollection of what facts were brought forward from that gentleman.
Yeah, you know, one of the main factors involving safety was there was no fixed fire protection on site on the plans, and that was a question from the board.
Sure.
We were curious. There's no fixed fire protection, nor was there a emergency response plan in the event of a release or a ignition in this area. And there was no indication on the plan. That was one of the main things. If you can talk on fire protection.
Yep.
response.
Okay. So, so what's done as part of the permitting process is a fire safety analysis, and that gets done and submitted to the fire department for approval. So there is that document that has been done and submitted. I don't have it with me today, but we can submit that to the board for their review. But it was, that gets approved by the local authority having jurisdiction, and that would be the local fire department.
That's our fire marshal, right?
Yeah, they would send it to the fire department, it gets referred there from the planning board. They require a referral to the, for everything, not just for this, but they do refer that. And the board, I mean, and the fire department's supposed to respond back and say yes or no, or, you know, we need additional things.
Thanks, Mike.
So does that address your?
It was a question that,
Sure.
it was a question that was raised with the 60,000 gallon or 90% of that of
Sure.
liquid propane there.
Yep.
And
So
the
it's,
procedures involved. If there was an ignition or a fire, how would we conduct a extinguishment or an emergency response or maybe an evacuation? I do remember the gentleman was an expert in the FDNY, and he had the handbook with him for emergency response on liquid propane, and that was it was greater than a half a mile of evacuation on that quantity. It was maybe longer. I don't have that book in front of me, so that was one of the main concerns.
okay, so per the National Fire Code, NFPA 58 and 54, which the plants get designed to. I'm sorry. The plant meets all the requirements per code. A fire suppression system is not code required, but it could be something that the local fire department requested. They did not in this situation. The plant has what are called fusible links. So there's tubing that has nitrogen in it, and that nitrogen is used to control all the safety valves that are part of the plant. And that tubing is designed to melt at 212 degrees. So what happens in case of a fire around the plant, what happens is that tubing melts and all of the valves close, making the plant safe. And then it has relief valves on it, so if the pressure builds up inside these tanks around a fire, that those reliefs go off and release the gas into the atmosphere. And New York has a code that says those reliefs need to be piped 7 feet above the top of the tank, getting them out of the distance if there was a fire down below.
So
And then-
how far up do they go if they're on top of the tank?
So the tanks, these tanks are 10 foot in diameter and they're 3 feet off the ground, so 20 feet. So if the fire's down on the ground, the gas release is 20 feet away. And the way the classifications work, Division 1, which is the most explosive, is a 5-foot circle from the area, and then Division 2 is 15 feet. So by being 20 feet in the air, you're out of the, I'll call it the area where it can ignite. So, and they have to have 3 things for a fire. You have to have an ignition source, you have to have fuel, and you have to have air. So by that mixture and the distances, that's the way the code has set it up. So it keeps the release of the gas away from a fire that would be on the ground. So also in the plant, there's what are called breakaways. So say the truck was, like someone drove away from a gas station. Those hoses are designed to break away and not let any gas come out. Same thing here, and then there's also the link with the nitrogen. So again, all the valves would close. There's a breakaway coupling on that, so that's another safety feature in the plant. All the piping is welded to what's called ASME B31-1, which is the code for this type of construction. The fittings are 3,000-pound class forged fittings. And there is positive shut-off valves within 5 feet of the bottom of the tank, which is a code requirement. There are what's called excess flow valves. So if a pipe broke downstream and liquid was flowing out of the tanks, these valves automatically shut. So if it sees flow different than its normal operating configuration, these valves immediately slam shut. They're called excess flow valves, trapping the liquid into the tank so it won't spill onto the ground. There'll be 2 emergency shutdown locations. So if there was a fire within 25 feet and 100 feet, there would be, someone could manually shut the plant down at 2 different locations on the site.
Is this going to be manned 24 hours?
No, it's not. I don't, no.
So this is not an automatic programmed control, it's a manual strictly.
Well, with the fusible links, there's the automatic. So if there was a fire and nobody
I
was
get
there.
that, But
yeah.
for this other set of controls,
For those
they're
other,
manual only.
yes, those other valves are manual valves. That's to be if the driver was there, he saw something happen, he could shut it off.
So if an off-hours incident occurs, how do you get notified? Is there alarm mechanisms in place? How does that work? So you have a fire.
Sure.
You've engaged, right? The tank safety mechanisms have engaged. How does the notification go out to either the fire department or to personnel there on site to determine that something has occurred?
Right now, there's currently no notification from the plant itself to the fire department.
So there's no central station call-in or audible or dial-up alarms?
There is not.
part of this.
There's not. It's not a code requirement per NFPA. So there are actually, I did a quick look, there are actually 5 plants within 10 miles of this spot that have the same storage or larger. And they're,
How long have those been in existence, to your knowledge?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long they've been in existence. I know that, let me just check my notes. I can tell you exactly what they are.
Are any of them in Carmel?
That was my next
Yeah.
question.
Suburban Propane has 2. Perico Gas has 1.
Are these
Halsted.
Are they located in the town of Carmel?
I'm not sure where the
I think
town
Suburban's
boundaries
in
are. I'm not
Brewster
sure
and
where they are, but
Southeast.
when I did a measurement on the map, they're within 10 miles of this building,
All right, and
or less.
Are they in residential zones?
One of them appeared to be, but I didn't have the zoning maps with me. I was just saying proximity to this building.
How close is this unit to the nearest home?
I don't know the setback to the building itself, but I know the setback per code is 50 feet to a buildable property line. And these tanks are away from that, and that's the national code. That's the way the code has it set up. And they feel that, they govern public safety, and they've decided that that is the appropriate distance for this volume.
And when you mentioned this code, that's a national code that you're
It is.
relating to? Okay.
It is.
NFPA is National Fire Protection. I forgot what the A is, but administration maybe.
There's also to continue on with the safety, there's also a static reel. So when the trucks come up, to make sure there's no static electricity, there's a reel that's connected, that's grounded, to make sure that there are no sparks. The electrical system for the plant is all Class 1, Diff 1. What that means is it's all explosion-proof. So there's no way an electrical spark can get out of the conduits that contain it. And the motors for the pumps are explosion-proof motors. They're designed to run in an atmosphere that could see Class 1, Div 1 situation. The hoses ends are designed to be low to zero emissions, so when they disconnect from the trucks, that gas gets captured in the nozzle, so it isn't vented to the atmosphere. There's also strainers throughout the system to protect the pumps, so nothing can happen to them. And there's also hydrostatic reliefs in between each one of the valves, so pressure couldn't build up and not be relieved. So the system, anywhere liquid could get trapped in the system, there's a safety device that's installed on the piping to make sure that there isn't a pipe burst. They're designed to relieve the pressure and make sure that all of the piping stays within its safe operating parameters. And, you know, it's a bulk propane plant is actually safer than your typical gas station.
Now, you call it a propane plant. What does that entail other than the 2 tanks that we're talking about, and what else is there?
So the only other thing it entails is a pump to transfer liquid. It's a liquid transfer pump. In the industry, we call them bulk plants.
In the industry, have you ever heard of one of these plants bursting into flames?
I have not.
Okay. Have you ever heard of them leaking?
I have seen major leaks, no. I've seen small leaks, and there's protocol to handle those. Wayne will have a staff of trained gas techs, and he'll do periodic maintenance. So there's critical valve maintenance that's done every 4 months when you have a facility like this, and there's an operating manual that goes through, and you follow the procedures that are developed, and you have your scheduled maintenance, and there's times when for you to check the tightness of this, and then there's times when you replace, and even if it's broken or not, you replace it because that's your standard operating procedure.
That just sounds like a lot of ifs. Like, this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be tested, and if it's not, that's the issue.
I wouldn't say it's a lot of ifs, it's just what you do. It's like you change the oil in your car, or you're gonna blow your motor if you don't. So you have maintenance you do. It's a machine. Everybody maintains machines. So it's not an if, it's just this is what you do, this is how you do it, and there's a procedure. Like in your car, if you have a Ford, you have an owner's manual, and in the back it says, on 5,000 miles you do this, on 10,000 miles you do this, on 20,000 miles you do this.
If it's not done, say, I have no one to blame but myself if I don't do that. Is there anyone that's looking into the plant to make sure that these are done periodically as the plant's owner's manual will say?
There are inspections that would get done by the fire department for his license.
And the license is yearly?
I believe you are yearly with your inspections, yes.
So once a year, the fire department will go out to make sure that things have been done throughout the year?
Yes.
The sheer fact that there could be human error and mechanical error, especially that this is not a manned plant 24/7, 365, I think that concerns a lot of people, especially the public. I appreciate your, anybody have any more questions for?
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the explosion that happened in Farmington, Maine?
Yes.
You are. What went wrong?
So that was a small tank that was providing propane into a building. And it seems like some of I don't know all the particulars, but what I've heard and read in the news is that it appeared that one of the gas pipes inside the building leaked.
And what was the size of that tank?
I do not know.
But a firefighter was killed that day. I think there was another one someone had mentioned
So
in Indiana.
the main difference between that piping and the piping that's going to be on this plant has all welded piping, and it has 3,000-pound fittings. So the typical piping it's all low-pressure piping inside a building, so it is not nearly as strong and does not have the same connections. So those are screwed-on connections that could develop leaks over time. These are all welded connections that, due to the fact that they're welded and you're basically melting metal to join metal, they can't come apart.
What about the safety to the trucks that are going to be filling up there? Like, once a truck is filled, what is the capacity of the truck? What safety measures are there that nothing's going to happen as the truck is driving out?
The truck has a DOT-approved, basically, tank on it, and those get inspected by the DOT on a yearly basis. Relief valves, all of those types of things are governed by the DOT. I'm not a truck expert.
No, I understand. I thank you for your candor and your help.
What's a typical delivery truck in gallons of propane?
They range in size, everywhere from, it could be 1,800 gallons to 3,200 gallons. I've seen 4,500 gallons up to 5,000 gallons.
And then what's a typical delivery truck, because that'll be different for the service provided?
The truck that's bringing the gallons to the bulk plant? Or
To
to the
the
truck?
customer.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. The typical delivery truck is anywhere from 1,500 to 45 to even 5,000 gallons. The tractor-trailer truck that brings it in is anywhere from 9 to 12,000 gallons.
And how many trucks are staged on site in addition to the 30,000 gallons, you know, that would be staged there?
Two.
Two 4,500 gallon trucks?
I'm not sure. What's 2,800 gallon trucks?
2,800, okay. And then normally, I'm not familiar with the operation, are they normally filled up and when they're there? When they're parked?
They're going to be typically, when
The
you're
delivery
operating, I would imagine you're different stages of, you know, if the guy's worked a long day, they're probably not going to stay and fill the truck at night. They're probably going to do it in the morning, so it may be empty, you know.
Was that noted on the plans where they were actually staged?
Yes.
In the site? I don't remember seeing that.
You'll see the one large transport truck that's kind of parallel to the front of the tanks, and then you'll see the two smaller trucks that are lined up or at the unloading stanchions.
So the total capacity is more towards this two 30,000 gallon and then two 4,500 gallon would be a normal overnight fixture there.
His trucks are 2,800 gallons.
2,800,
Yep.
excuse me.
And you fill those to 85%.
Okay.
Same with the large tanks.
You have to leave your
Max
extension.
capacity is 85%.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. We appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. I just want to remind the board and the public that a use variance must prove all of the following. Incapable of earning a reasonable return if used for any of the allowable uses, and dollar amounts must be shown. Council did give us in his memorandum in black and white the facts here, but without having actual backup like tax information, rent information, transactions, I could write anything that I wanted on a memorandum or a piece of paper. So for that fact, I think we need more black and white documentation of true transactions and tax bills and whatnot. Number two, the property is affected by unique or at least highly uncommon circumstances. You mentioned other plants that are in the area. They've probably been there for years before even any residences were built, whereas residents exist here now, and you're looking to bring a plant of dangerous possibilities. Like I mentioned, mechanical, human error, failure, it can happen, no matter what. It could also be a terrorist site. God forbid, it's a different world we live in today. We have to think about stuff like that. Vandalism, kids playing around. Property's not fenced off, it's not secured 100%. It's not secured, it's not guarded. A kid not knowing better can go in there and mess around. Number three, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I think we all know the answer to that. And then number four, it's not self-created. So just a reminder there. So at this point, Greg, unless you have anything else, I'll open it up to the public for any comments, questions, concerns. Come on up. Please sign in on the sign-in sheet with your name, address. It should be on the podium. And just write GenEC application, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Todd Diaz. I live at 66 Cary Street in Mapac.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask the expert what volume of gas would be required to blow all the houses within like 100 yards or half a mile away? And does that exceed 60,000 gallons of gas?
Okay, is that your only question?
For now, yeah.
All right, because, I mean, we want to address the board and keep it so it's not bouncing back and forth, so.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I forget your name again. You want to answer that?
I don't know, sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what that.
All right, so the expert doesn't have an answer to that.
So I guess a follow-up question would be, do they have an expert that would provide a blast radius in the case of a worst-case scenario?
It doesn't appear they're prepared for that tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir? You know, just, yeah, state your name and address for the record, then before you leave the podium.
David Anacone, 80 Route 6N, Mahopac, New York.
All right, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thanks.
I had several issues just living right up the street from here. One of them was the amount of vehicles, new cars that are being stored on the property that have fuel in them. If there was a catastrophic failure of the tanks, they would become accelerators, and that's one issue I have with it. This gentleman spoke about breakaway hoses from the truck to the tank. Is there a shut-off valve on the truck that if that was to break away, that it stops what's in the truck from coming out?
I think typically there are features as such, but I'm not 100% certain. John, would you know? From your-
Also, the valves on these relief valves that are supposed to shut, how are they affected if there's frost? Will they hang up, or are they fail-proof? I mean, safety devices are in place for safety, but they do fail. Your car's got parking brakes on it because it's, but they fail too. The 50-foot setback from a home, is that for any amount of propane that you spoke about before for the setback?
Just speaking to them, address
I'm
the
sorry.
board.
The 50-foot setback that he was referring to from what the standard is from any dwelling, is that for any amount of propane, or is it only a certain amount, up to a certain amount?
Okay, well, I don't know the answers to that, so if you have a list of questions you want
Are
to,
there-
do you have answers to these, or, because
Are there periodic state inspections?
he mentioned earlier that there was yearly fire department inspections, which
But there are no state inspections?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. And I guess my last question would be, well, it's not even a question, it's probably a statement. I feel that the installation of these tanks would greatly devalue my property for resale. And
Okay.
that would be the other issue I have with that.
All right, I think most of your previous questions are probably more geared towards the planning board.
I'm sorry?
They're geared more towards the planning board hearings
Okay,
on the case.
And there will be a public hearing at the planning board
Right.
also.
okay. Okay.
We're here strictly to deal with the variance, the use variance issue, which is the criteria that I read earlier.
Is there a certain setback or regulation? Because Route 6N is actually a state road, is it not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Say it again, I'm sorry, Mr.
6N is a state road, isn't it?
That's correct.
And the town is paid to take care of the state road. Is there a setback from a state road that's allowed to have this type of tank or?
Yeah, we don't maintain the state road, the state does, the
Oh, okay.
DOT does.
So is anybody aware of that information? Is there a
The
certain
DOT,
setback
they are
that-
noticed through the.
for DOT for the state road?
267 No, but also through the notification. Yeah, they're notified through the notification process, 239M. So they're adjacent to a state road, so that's on the application, I believe, correct? In front of you guys? It is, I'm sure it says Route 6N is a state road, so they would be notified. But the same setback goes to the front property line, I believe, also. Meaning from the NFPA.
And there was no traffic study done?
That's a planning board.
Because
That's at the
that
next-
also coincides with the soccer field there, on pretty much any given weekend or soccer game, there's 40 or 50 cars parked on the side of the road down there.
Doesn't say that on the application. I could check on the computer if you don't have. No, it's on here.
While you're waiting, make sure you sign the paper. Is that-
It's already done. I signed it when it came in.
Okay. There you go. Sorry.
So the 10 plants that, I think the gentleman said 10 plants before, if I'm not mistaken, it's probably in your meeting minutes, in this residential area within 10 miles, I think he said, was it? How many of those are in residential areas? He just said the one?
I think he said.
The one, so
Yeah, he said-
none
I think it
of
was
the
short.
other, was it 10 plants that he said?
We don't know if it was even
We don't know.
factual.
Five within 10 miles, so the other four are not in residential areas.
And it's not clear if that other one was either. He didn't have a zoning map one way or the other.
The state and the town boundary are both on the notification for the application.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just
That
saw
soccer field's in Yorktown, it's not in.
properties within 500 feet of Route 6N and the town boundary.
Correct.
On our application, I don't know what's on the planning board app.
No, I was looking at your application,
Okay.
so that gets noticed.
All right, does that satisfy?
They handle all that.
And just one more thing, it's just, once the leaves fall off the trees, it's an eyesore. I mean, you're seeing loaders, tractor trailers, dump trucks, tow vehicles, parked cars from car dealerships are storing there. It's just, it's not very
Hence-
appealing to
hence
look at,
altering-
besides the safety issue.
Hence altering the essential character of the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Anybody else was, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard? Okay, going once, going twice. Sir?
Speak up if you want to talk.
Hello, Richard Flynn, 15 Pine Tree Lane.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I'd like to bring up one point about the NFPA pamphlet that he had mentioned, that there was no fire suppression or anything like that. It specifically states that there needs to be fire suppression within 4 minutes, and in addition to that, 10 minutes to cool the propane tanks before significant explosion. I don't have all the information, but it is in there in the code book,
You're
specific.
citing the New York State?
New York
or
State,
NFPA?
is New York Fire Protection, pamphlet 58. It's Form 8-4. It tells you that you need a public supply of water. If you don't have that, you can do static pond, something nearby. If you don't have that, you have to do mobile truckers. And you have to prove that you have sufficient water to cool these tanks if there is a fire in the surrounding area. Not specifically about the tanks themselves,
But
which he had
segregated.
mentioned, but if there's a fire surrounding the tanks. I understand the tanks have their own safety measures, but you also need fire suppression to,
That's a good point.
because if it needs to cool these tanks or whatnot.
Thank you.
One of the other things was, he had mentioned, also in the same book, there is explosion rates and dispersion of vapor. So another guy had mentioned, what's the dangers of that? One of them goes up to about 410 feet for flame ball. Explosion hazard, 410 feet. I know there's houses close to that. I know there's a school. Also in the code book is dwellings, such as schools. There's a Creative Learning Kids Center right down the street. The soccer field alone has multiple schoolyards, athletic fields, playgrounds. There's a ton of stuff that's in that book that they did not mention about, and if you give me some chance to refine that, I can. But also, as far as on that street, the clearance, as if you were pulling out, making a left out of that lot, the clearance to where 6N turns is very non-visible to traffic coming
Yeah, it's blind
in the
spot.
opposite direction. An 18-wheeler, it doesn't, it's not going to get 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. So for it to pull out, it's pretty much a danger. And then also, I'd like to mention that the transfer pumps that they use for these units are quite loud. So if I have videos on the internet that's out there that shows guys doing webcams or whatever, he can't even sit out of the truck. He has to be in his cab to do the webcam because it's so loud. So if they happen to come early morning hours and do these kind of transfers, it's going to be a very big
Nuisance.
nuisance, right? And I think about covers it for now.
Just do me a favor, write your name
Oh, yeah.
and address. Sorry, someone else wish to be heard? Okay, anybody else? Come on up. I already swore you in, but please keep it
Yeah,
brief.
Todd
We've got a
Diaz
long
again.
night.
Just wanted to point out too, the layout of the land there, they're proposing this site is like a low point and it's surrounded by all the houses are up above it. So in the event of an explosion, I think it's pretty obvious the impact that that would have. It's not like it's above and all the houses are below it. And the venting of any gases, I don't know if they pool or, if, you know, but all that I think needs to be taken into consideration, obviously. So,
Understood.
thank you.
All right. All right, at this point, I'm going to close the public, oh, yeah, I guess Greg or Matt, if you guys want to, any last comments or?
Well, there were a couple questions posed that I think Matt would be better suited to answer. One of the gentlemen was asking about the valves and how they were affected by frost, or if they would be affected by frost, so obviously we'd just like to address that issue.
Matt Campano again. The internal valves that close are called internal valves because you could actually shear the part that sticks off out of the tank completely off and the valve will still close because it's up inside the tank, so it can't get affected by frost. And then the relief valves that sit on top by code have a rain cap that sits on that to keep any water from getting inside the standpipe that's on the top of them. And then the valve is all located internally. So with the waterproof cap on top, there's no way for water to get inside to freeze that valve, because the gentleman was concerned that it would get frozen. And there was also a question about the fire suppression. So that's specifically addressed in the fire safety analysis. That's what happens. You review the response, and the fire department either says, yes, we do have the amount of water that he was talking about, and it is in X minutes away, and that's all evaluated, and actually the fire chief looks at it and says, yes, we can handle this if there's a problem. And if there isn't, that's when the code tells you you need to make other arrangements, like the gentleman was talking about, a pond nearby or something like that. So it's really up to the public safety officer here in your town, the fire chief who's in charge of that, to make the determination.
Mike, are they part of the planning board process?
Yes, they would have been notified, and they will be sent the full application, if they weren't already, which they may have.
Okay. So it sounds like it's under review. Okay. By them. Okay.
As a zoning board of appeals, certainly the safety that is important to your residents is something that you guys can and should consider. But with these safety items, and they're going to be reviewed at the planning board level with the appropriate representatives for the town, such as town engineer, town planner. I don't know if it's something that we can, cross over and have them review that stuff in connection with this application. But, Matt has indicated to me that he's been involved in 50 of these projects. He's never had an issue with it. We can all Google. We can find out if a plant like this or similar to this has been a problem. The only thing that was brought up tonight was an internal explosion in a building where there was a bad pipe within the building. Matt testified here to the board that your local gas station is more dangerous than this. And so what I would suggest, or at least request, I should say, is perhaps some engineering review to assist the board and maybe report back to see if these are concerns for this residential area, or if it's something that we are worrying about that is not a safety issue.
Well, I think the burden is on you as the applicant and the client. The town's not going to pay for, like, consultation from expertise or whatnot. That's,
Certainly understand that.
so,
But my concern is we bring an expert in who tells you how safe this is, okay? And then we have people just reading out of a book saying, well, this hasn't been done, this hasn't been done. This gentleman here builds these plants for a living, and I think that we should probably have a technical review from your engineer or from a town planner as opposed to, you know, what we're gathering information,
well,
you know.
that aspect is being handled with the town planner and the planning board.
Okay.
But, you know, our weighing test is based on the criteria.
Sure.
And, you know, part of, like I mentioned before, altering the essential character of the neighborhood. I think this totally alters the character of the neighborhood. There's no doubt about it. So that right there, in my mind, is,
But, Mr. Chairman, is
achievable.
that based upon this safety argument, or?
I think in general, safety being part of it.
All right.
Safety aspect, the look of it,
Because if it's based upon the safety argument, that's what I'm saying. I would like to you know, address that with the technical people who have the background to review the safety part of it.
do you want to hold this over until you can get more information, or you?
I mean, two ways to look at it. I mean, the board could say, if you're inclined to move this along, that the safety issues will be addressed at the planning board level. You indicated before that you wanted some more information regarding financial stuff. I would request, I mean, we've given you facts and figures here for, you know, for what we believe sets forth our entitlement to the variance based upon the hardship. So if there's something else that would be requested from that, we can certainly submit it. My client can provide copies of tax bills, copies of checks written
I
from
think
mortgage
that's what you
payments.
need to do,
So-
not just have it written in a sentence in a statement here. Greg, am I right? I mean, the burden should be on the applicant to provide tax bills, rent receipts.
In terms of the dollars and cents proof of whatever the economic hardship is, I mean, generally, yes, the
Yeah.
applicant provides that for your consideration.
So if I'm hearing you right, I think you want to hold this over until you can provide more of that documentation and more of the safety,
Well, but
answers to the safety concerns of the public that's been brought forth.
But I would like to clarify, can we have a technical review? Because, look, understanding that we would be doing this at the planning board level, it's not an added cost to my client. You know, we can have it done now so that your consultants can report to your board, your consultants with the technical expertise. You know, it's something that we would just be taking care of a step at the planning board anyway. I don't know if it's something you do, you know, typically on a zoning board application, but because this is such an important question to the board and the public.
Well, for you to go forth with the planning board, you need to either be approved or denied
Absolutely.
through the zoning board, right? So I don't know if that's something that can be considered, if we make a recommendation to the planning board. You guys tell me.
I think what council's suggesting is, you're mentioning holding the public hearing open for some other supplemental submissions for you to consider, regardless of the sourcing on the administrative board. And that's going to be up to you. If the safety issues, in addition to whatever else you're considering, are something you want more information on before you can render your determination, and they're being done at the planning level, you can keep the meeting open, the public hearing open, and consider them.
Okay?
Yeah,
So,
I think that's what's
what do
being
you guys
suggested. There's nothing wrong with affording more process. Okay.
Well, listen, I guess what I'm suggesting is this. This board has safety concerns, the public has safety concerns. It's going to have to be addressed either at this board or at the planning board with your consultants, right? So why not do it now? Because we believe that we'll make this board more comfortable. Why not do it now and get it out of the way?
so that's my question. Can they be referred to the planning board to vet these safety concern questions?
Well, the planning board's not going to open their public hearing until this is
Right, so.
finalized.
I'm not suggesting we start the public hearing at the planning board. I'm suggesting that the engineers that represent, assist the town at the planning level, assist the zoning board at this point in time. It would save us a step if we, get back over to the planning board.
This is a new one on me. I've been on the board for almost 20 years. I've never heard of this happening, so.
But we don't have the technical expertise here or from the public to review these safety concerns. I'm just suggesting we go to the person or the people who do.
Safety isn't the only issue, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Understood.
We have a lot of.
Understood.
When you look at the criteria, there are things that don't seem to fit into the criteria, and with the use variance, every one of those things have to be met. So I don't want anybody spinning their wheels when there may be other issues here, beyond the safety issue. I wouldn't want to see the applicant spending tons of money on something when there are other issues that we have to consider.
Good point.
I would agree. I don't think safety is something
It's
that will be
probably the
considered.
most
but
important thing, but it's not the only
it's
thing.
not- I think it's important, but I do not think that it is the issue that's going to be the overwhelming issue in the case, in the application. And I disagree with my friend here. I think the numbers from council and the memorandum should be considered, and I would say that we should try to resolve this today.
Yeah, there's definitely, the use variance requires those 4 criteria, and I'm not sure you meet them at this point.
We believe we do, and like I said, we've submitted the financial. I understand that everybody has been stating that this is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. This is a commercial site. It's been a commercial site since 1967.
But it's an expansion of something that doesn't conform to code today. So are we gonna keep expanding on something that's a nonconformity?
That's why it's here.
This is the entire site right here. That's the size of the tanks located on the site.
Expansion of use.
Sir?
You can't do it.
Craig, were the 4 or 5 leases in place when the applicant purchased the property in 2017?
Yes, they were.
So it was a property that was not turning a profit in 2017 as well?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So he knew what he was getting into then?
That's correct.
He knew he was running at a loss.
Correct.
So it's a self-created hardship then?
Self-created is certainly something the board can consider. But also not the deciding factor. In fact, if you look at most variances, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who's applying for a variance that isn't self-creating their issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Counsel.
Anything further?
Okay, nope.
All right, I closed the public hearing on this already, so sorry. You had your opportunity. Respect that. We have a long night here, so please bear with us.
So motion to close? Is that what we-
Yeah, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
Motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, application number 4 is Daniel and Patricia Byrne for a variation of section 15615, seeking permission to construct a shed in the backyard behind garage. The property is located at 26 Tamarack Road, Mahopac, New York, 10541, known by tax map 75.8-2. All right, if you're not here for any other applications this evening, can I ask you please to clear the room? We have other people that need to be heard and need... No, we'll be voting on it tonight. So if you want to stay, you can stay, you can go home and watch it on TV, or you can call the building department and find out, but... I'm sorry? Yes, we are.
Okay.
Ma'am, I closed the public hearing. Please respect the process.
We're voting tonight. If you want to stay, you have to let us do our work, which means you have to be quiet.
So if you're going to be leaving, we'll wait 10 minutes before we hear the next application for the room to clear. Otherwise, please sit quietly in fairness to the other applicants that need to be heard tonight.
All right, burn.
I'm going to wait a few minutes for people to clear out. Okay, I'll call number 4 again, Daniel and Patricia Byrne. Come on up. You're next on The Price is Right.
Thanks.
Please speak clearly into the microphone, state your name and address. for the record.
Patricia Byrne, 26 Tamarack Road, Mayapack, New York.
Raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, bring us through what you're looking for.
Excuse me?
What are you looking to do?
I'm looking to put a shed behind our garage.
Okay. So this is not built yet, this is a new application.
Correct.
What, bear with me a second, sorry, get the site plan here. All right, so you locate it in the back corner of the property. Is there any reason why it needs to be so close to the property line?
The property's very small.
I get that. But it's not built yet, and there's also codes that we have to comply with and work towards. So
Right.
if there's some,
Well, there was an existing shed there, and that was where it was, right in that spot, behind the garage.
so is there an existing foundation? Is there a
No.
platform?
No,
Okay, so it
I
doesn't
don't-
really preclude the reason for it to go in the exact same location. If we have an opportunity to bring this in better conformance with the town code, we're looking to do that.
okay.
So, I mean, if you want to meet us halfway a little bit, what's a tolerable footage? Anyone want to throw something out there?
I'll go
For a
five-
shed?
I'll go 5 feet.
Yeah.
5
So
feet?
if we move this 5 feet off the property line, you'll only need a variance of 5 feet, because it's a 10-foot setback, okay?
Okay.
You can live with that?
I don't know, my husband will have to live with it.
Okay.
He's the one that kept growing the shed.
And you spoke to your neighbors?
Yes,
There's no
we
issue
have.
with it? And there's no other
Yes.
property you can buy to bring this into conformance?
Excuse me?
There's no other property you can buy?
No.
You're landlocked, right? So you can't bring this into
Correct.
conformance?
Correct.
Okay, board members? Mark? No questions. Silvio?
The movable plastic shed obviously is coming down because you're replacing it with this shed, correct?
The plastic,
That's what it's, there's a plastic shed on the site.
that's already down.
No questions, thank you.
No questions? Do we have to get her to sign the
Yeah.
application to change?
If, John, do you mind? Do you have any questions, John?
No questions.
All right. Yeah, we have to change the original application, and you have to sign it, that you agree
Okay.
to what we're looking for.
All right.
Nobody else? All right, while we're waiting, anybody in the public have any input or questions or concerns on this application? Well, let's make sure we get our paperwork together first. Okay. Ma'am?
Thank you.
Good
All right, I'll
luck.
look for a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
Motion to close.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 5, Natalie Conciatori for variation of section 15615, seeking permission to retain and legalize already existing shed. The property is located at 23 Stacy Lane, Mahopac, New York, and the tax map 6519-1-52.
Hi,
You are? State your name and address for the record.
Natalie Conchatori.
Just speak into the
Natalie
mic.
Conchatori, 23 Stacy Lane, Mahopac.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. All right, so the shed's been here how many years?
I'm thinking 20 years.
20 years. Wow. And it's kind of nestled in the back corner of the property. I was out there the other day. It's pretty well screened. Have you spoken to your neighbors on either side?
Yes.
Is this one with supportive letters? Yes, yes. I guess Jim Alatherion. My wife and I absolutely have no opposition to Eva Cacciatore at 23 Stacy Lane having a shed on her property. And Debbie Spano, I was asked to respond if I was going to have any issue with my neighbor having a shed on her property. I'm writing to let you know I have no issue with her having any shed on her property. Okay, those are a couple letters we received in support. There's no other property you can purchase to bring it into conformance. You can't buy a piece of your neighbor's property, right? So you're landlocked?
He's here. I don't think so.
Okay. Board members, John?
No questions.
Rose?
No questions.
Bill?
No questions, thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
All right, any input or questions from the public on this application? Are you both going to be speaking?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Derek Chaskowski, 24 Stacy Lane. So what,
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Just do me a favor, before you leave the podium, just write your name
Okay.
and address down.
Sure, will do. So, a couple of questions. Let's see, I think I have them here. Okay, so a couple of questions on this, right? So, what is the reason for the variance? You know, the property is 1.5, my neighbor's property is 1.5 acre. So it's not like we're tight with the space. There's all kind of space, right? That's one question. Second, was there actual, I think on the internet, in the meeting notes, there's a statement that there was actually the survey performed. Was there actual survey done?
We have a copy of the site plan, yes.
You have a copy of the survey?
Yes.
Okay, so are you aware that there's an easement right under the tool shed?
I am not, but it's not.
They're aware, the building,
Yeah,
the engineering department was spoken to about this. The owner was told that if anything happens and they need to move the shed, they will be moving the shed to get to the drainage pipe.
I see it, yes, we have it signed.
All right, so you're saying the tool shed can be moved for the,
If they have to,
If they
have to dig it up to get to the pipe, they're not gonna worry about the tool shed. They're gonna move the tool shed with the machine. They're just gonna
okay, so.
slide it.
So, in the same case, the tool shed is built on the railroad type, actually I have some pictures over here. I can share that with you. And that's the reason why I'm bringing this up, because, I liked everything to be up to code. I've been in this town probably nearly 20 years, and Mr. Carnazza has been on my property a number of times for various permits, and it wasn't the removal of oil tank or moving of the windows. So, I want to make sure everything is up to code, right? So, so this tool shed is sitting on the railroad type of logs, so that could be very easily moved, right? There's also another thing.
You've been here for 20 years?
Yes.
And she stated the shed's been here for 20 years?
Yeah,
as
since
well.
I moved
Okay.
in, and for 20 years, I've been asking them to move it.
Okay.
But, I'm a good neighbor, I'm
You're
not.
the neighbor on the immediate right side?
I'm the neighbor, I'm the guy,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
And the fact that there's a lot of trees and screening between you is not a bearing factor? I mean,
Well,
you can
you
see
know-
from the pictures?
No, I mean, so, you can have some pictures here, so. I think this is, I have to have this here.
Thank you.
So I have not, so if the town doesn't mind, because of the easement, the county, right? And there's not an issue. I can probably live with the where the town, where the tool shed is, but I want to see the actual drawing showing that on the property map where the tool shed is in reference to the border. And also,
Here. You want
on
to
the-
take my copy?
can I have this?
Sure.
Okay, and also in the pictures that I provided you, there used to be a second tool shed, which was total on my property. And there's a foundation for the tool shed still there. And again, we spoke number of times, so I'm very happy that Ms. Conchatori, got to the board to approve the tool shed and get everything done. However, that foundation or the structure is still there. And last time when we spoke, we said that, I said it again, that I want that to be removed. So I think my condition is that I do not agree on the variance until that's removed. As simple as this. And you see the pictures over there, which is used as a storage. That's on my property now. Used as a storage and debris and so on. So I think that that's not much to ask for the, for exchange of the variance. And by the way, we have a pretty good relationship. I don't think we had ever any problems, but, you can ask
I don't
so
know
many
about
times.
after
so-
tonight, but.
I'm sorry?
I don't know about after tonight, but that remains to be seen. Listen, we'll let the board ponder it, and I'm going to give her a chance to respond if that's all you have tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if that's clear from my property completely, and, then I'm okay with the easement as proposed. With the variance as proposed.
Let me give Ms. Conchatori a chance to reply to that, and hopefully we'll
Okay, let me
resolve.
just sign it. Sorry, my name is very long.
I just wanted to say that before I started this process, I did speak to Derek and Wally about the situation, and I thought from our conversation that we were okay. And yes, next to the shed is two railroad tires. It wasn't another shed, it was a tarp, and it was taken down.
Okay, are you willing to remove
Absolutely,
it to
yes.
satisfy
And we
your
had that
neighbor?
we did have that
Keep
conversation.
good relations?
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
So you
And
don't have
I-
a problem if we condition that?
No, not at all. We plan to take it off. I just haven't had a chance. They're not light, so
Okay?
I'm in the process of doing that.
All right, once we decide and consider those factors that we
Okay.
can condition that, then you wouldn't get your permit until that's taken care of, right, Mike? Sure. If we condition that, that's got to be addressed before you can issue the permit.
So can you just go over that with me if I take everything out?
If we
If you
pose this
agree?
condition on this decision tonight, that would have to be taken care of before Mike can issue you a CO for your.
Okay, so before Mike comes
That's-
out, that
no,
will be taken
Before I
out?
issue the permit.
Okay.
I'll take it down probably this weekend.
Okay.
So that's railroad ties or a platform? I thought
You
he's,
have the pictures.
Yes.
yeah.
They look like two railroad tires, and next to it was a tarp. The tarp is down, the railroad tires are not down.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any more input from the public on this application? All right, I'll look for a motion to close the hearing on the application.
Motion to close.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, application number 6, I want to say Joe Namath, but it's John Nemeth. For variation of section 156.15, seeking permission to retain already existing shed properties located at 100 Longdale Road, Mahopac, New York. Tax map 65.14-1-27. You are?
I am John Nemeth at 100 Longdale Road.
Just speak into the microphone, please.
John
You have
Nemeth,
to direct-
100 Longdale Road, Mayapack, New York.
Raise your hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. All right, bring us through your situation. How long has the shed been there?
30 to 32 years.
32 years?
Yes.
And looking for a 20-foot variance. You have a, corner lot, so it's kind of a difficult situation. However, I do have a question, because I was out there the other day, and I saw a gazebo that's not
Correct.
shown on your site plan.
Correct. I
Mike,
filed
I'm
for,
not
I filed
sure
for
if-
permits on those also.
I'm sorry?
I filed for a permit for all three, for 2 sheds and a gazebo, but I need a variance on the one that, the existing shed that's been there for 32 years.
Okay.
In other words, that one is 5 foot, or 5 feet off the property line.
Did
Then there's a
someone come in-
gazebo in the center of the property.
Hold on a second.
And there's a shed and a
Did someone actually go to the property and inspect this?
Dennis probably did, right? Is that,
excuse me?
you got a notice from Dennis on this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what happened. Dennis went out there.
All right, because it doesn't look like it's in the right location from what I saw out there. I mean, I pretty much, Mike, if you want to take it.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I got an aerial view here. So, John,
Excuse me?
you have 3 structures on your
Yes.
property. Can you just step around here for a second? This is your house. It's your house. Does that look right?
In the right spot.
That's you. What's this?
It looks like it is. Once we get the permit, then we'll go verify.
Okay.
There's a structure here, here,
I don't know
here.
if anyone else got a chance to go out and look at the property, but it looked like it was a lot closer to
We're
the
looking at
property
this
line than
today?
back, but Mike's right, it's only a 10-foot setback anyway. So if we do vote on this, we would have to make that contingent upon further,
Gotcha.
Say it again?
further investigation. We
Yeah.
can make it contingent
Absolutely.
upon.
When
okay.
we go out and look at it for the, if we get a permit and if it is in the wrong spot, we obviously can issue a CO on it. Thank you.
What about this other shed? It looks like it's 5 feet from the property line? There's a drawing here of something in the corner. 5 feet on one side and 18 on the other. This one on this corner. Is that shed still here? 5 feet, so this one you probably needed a variance for as well. Why is it says 20 front, 20 rear?
That's just the one
20.
shed. If there's a second shed, that's not in conformance.
This
I
20
think we
and,
might have to hold this one over.
this 20,
Look at your
20-foot variance is for where? Did you just add the numbers together? Is that what you did? You have a 5 feet. So it was advertised incorrectly. Provided is only 5 feet.
It says provided 20 feet.
That would be a side, that would be
Unless he's looking at that one in the corner.
Right. That's the one we're talking about. You're talking about that one. So this was advertised incorrectly.
No, they advertised the shed. That's supposed to be 40 feet from the front property line. It's only 20, so they need a variance for 20 feet.
Looks like it's 5 feet from the property line.
he's talking 20 is.
He's got 18 feet here. You see that?
Yeah,
Off of this
but
property
isn't
line.
isn't this a property line?
That's a property line too.
But that's not the front, I think this is the front.
Well, then this should be a
There's
10,
a
isn't
problem
it?
here, yeah. That's the front?
Yeah, there's a front here and there's a front here.
So this is,
Hold it over.
why would he need 20?
That's supposed to be.
That doesn't seem
It
right.
doesn't make sense.
Looks like it's off the back.
Mr. Nemeth, I think we're going to have to hold this over until the building department could get out there and take a look, all right?
This doesn't seem right here. It was misadvertised, I think. I think it should be 5. And maybe.
You need a variance.
You might need less of a variance than you're asking for.
Sorry, it's hard to, yeah, it might only be a 2-foot, right?
Or 5 foot from the side.
5 foot from the side, you got 3.
We'll see.
Okay, sir?
All right.
We'll put it over till next month? Okay.
How did this come up?
Dennis.
Oh, Dennis. Oh, it's not like you're selling the house and you're in a rush. Okay. All right.
All right, so. All right. We're going to hold this over, all right? I'm not going to ask for any input from the public because we're going to hold this over due to technical or
Questions?
questionable difficulties.
Motion to hold over.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Number 7, James Peter Fox for variation of 156.15, seeking permission to retain an already existing deck. The property is located at 305 Tulip Lane, Mahopac, New York. Tax map 86.9-1-44.
Jim Fox, 305 Tulip Lane.
Swear to tell, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
I
you
do.
God. All right. I was out there the other day. You said it's been there for almost
14, 15.
14 years. And I think you had some, you didn't know that you needed a permit for anything that's, I mean, it's typically 12 inches, under 12 inches is okay, but you're a little higher than that, so that's probably why this got picked up. Dennis went out there?
Yeah.
All right. Any issues with your neighbors? Anybody have any complaints or
No,
concerns about this?
I have letters.
Yep. You want to read it, Phil? I'll give you.
There is a letter of support for the application
Should
from
be
Lawrence.
more than one.
Oh, there's
Huh?
two.
There should
Two
be more
letters.
than
Two?
one.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first one is Lawrence and Michelle Morello, 312 Tulip Lane. To whom it may concern, the outdoor deck belonging to Jim and Rita Fox at 305 Tulip Lane has never posed a problem to us. We have no issues, concerns, or objections with the deck remaining as and where it is located today, and it's signed by both. And then a handwritten letter dated August 24, 2019, to whom it may concern, Mr. Fox's deck presents no problem to me and has not been a problem in the past, and I have no objections whatsoever. And that's from Anthony Jerussi, Jerussi, 60 Rose Drive, Mahopac, New York.
All right. There's no other property you can buy to bring it into conformance. It's been there for 14 years. It's well-maintained.
At 14, if I moved, it'd be about $8,000 to $10,000
The value of that would be, yeah, that's kind of a burden.
prohibited.
Okay. Board members, John?
I have no questions.
Rose?
No questions.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right. Any input from the public on this application? Going once, going twice. Look for a motion to close the hearing on this application.
So moved.
Seconded by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Where am I? A lot of paper, a lot of paper. All right. Application number 8, Gerard Alfaro for a variation of section 156.15, seeking permission to retain already existing tool shed. Property is located at 616 Union Valley Road, Mahopac, New York. Tax map 76.20-1-1.
Good
And you are?
evening.
Good
Kirsten
evening.
M. Schrammick on behalf of Gerard Alfaro.
Are you counsel?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I don't need to swear you in.
No.
All right, please.
Sure. This shed has been existing on the property since 1986, which predates my client's ownership of the home. He purchased the home in 2010, and we have submitted surveys from 1986 as well as 2008, which demonstrate that the shed was existing at the time. I have photographs which were also submitted demonstrating that the property itself is located basically on a hillside, and to the left of the home by the driveway is septic fields, so that the shed could not be moved to another location on that property. Further, the shed is aesthetically pleasing, and I don't think any of the neighbors have any issues with the shed, so I'm asking on behalf of my client that the shed be able to remain there and exist as it currently stands.
I was out there the other night as well, and yeah, you're landlocked. You got a big mountain behind you.
Correct.
It looks great.
Yeah, and it's well-maintained, very pretty, actually. There's no other property you can purchase to bring it into conformance?
No. Unfortunately, this house, my understanding is that it actually got struck by lightning more than twice.
Wow.
So it's been rebuilt 3 times.
Wow, lucky.
So I guess my clients are stuck there. I guess they love
Okay.
where they're living, and unfortunately, they will not be purchasing any other property.
Tell them to play the Mega Millions.
Yeah.
The lightning didn't hit the she shed.
Yeah, no, the she shed still stands.
I watched too much TV.
All right, board members, any questions down here?
No questions.
No questions.
No question.
No questions, thank you.
Thank
Any-
you very much.
Any input from the public on this application? I'll look for a motion to close the hearing on this application.
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
By Phil, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 9, Bert Meltzer, I'm going to recuse myself. Phil's going to take over.
Okay. Mr. Melchner, or whoever.
Hello, everybody. Bert Melchner.
Raise your right hand, please. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Sure do.
Give your name and address, please.
Bert Melchner, 31 High Ridge Road.
Okay, what are you here for today?
I am here for I have a 4-foot fence. I have a 6-foot fence. I'm asking for a 2-foot variance.
Okay, and so it's your fence?
Yep.
And what is the size of the fence now?
It is 6 foot. So if I could just make a couple comments. You should have a couple of pictures there in the document. So look, in order to maintain reasonable use as a lakefront, we use it for lakefront activities. We're seeking to keep the fence that we put up there. It's a privacy fence for our lakefront. As I said, we put up a 6-foot fence. We thought that you could have 6-foot fences on the side, 4 foot on the front. We do have 4 foot in the front. We thought that we were doing the right thing. We put a fence where they used to be, but then we found out that it was 6 foot, so that's why we're here. We've owned this property for more than 30 years. The piece next to it, we've owned 40-plus years. There's always been natural landscaping along the road. You can never see from the road into the actual property. But there's been 2 sales of properties, or 1 sale of a piece of property next to us, and then a pending sale of another piece of property. They've taken away the natural landscape, blocking the road. So now when people drive by, especially because of people stopping at the light, they just stop and they look right in at us. So it's a hardship that wasn't created by any of our own doing. The property was never visible from the street, so having a fence there is nothing new to the people that are driving by. It's not going to change any of their views that they had. It was never visible before. In addition, if you look at the neighbors, we have 1 letter from one of the neighbors that's just over from us, but the one neighbor on one side is my parents. The next neighbor had their own 6-foot fence that they just got asked to take down, and they took it down because they never used the property. On the other side of us, there's a piece of property that's still for sale. I have pictures of that piece of property with a 6-foot fence that was put up every year. The piece next to it, they just took down the road and put cars in there, so that's their privacy. When they're there, they have cars there. And the piece after that, we have a letter that's included in here. So everybody is there to support, or if they've done the same thing. What's specific about this piece of property is when you're driving down the street, you look right in on us. Because of the angle on the property to the street, it's not like you're looking at the lake and you're looking straight down a property. You literally look right into our property. So if you look at the pictures, you could see the picture of my 2 girls helping install the fence. You could literally see them standing there. So picture, young kids walking around, bathing suits, and all of a sudden, they're completely exposed to cars stopping on the road, looking in, beeping, honking, and garbage and noise, and everything just flows right in. So for all these reasons, we felt that it was the right thing to put a fence up there. There are a number of other properties around the lake that have 6-foot fences, many of them with variances. Some with variances for 6 foot on the front, so you can't see over them from the lake. So Because of that, you know, we feel that it's a hardship that, like I said, it wasn't created by us, wasn't of any of our own doing, and we're just trying to keep the privacy that was there before and protect my family while we're down at our lakefront.
And as part of your application, you have a letter, I guess, from yourself and your wife, Carrie?
That's what I just read off.
That's part of the application?
Loosely what I read that.
And there's also a letter from Alicia Andron?
Yes,
Andron? And
he's
that's-
two pieces of property over.
Okay, and it's dated September 10, 2019, to whom it may concern. I have been a neighbor to Melchers for the past 45 years. They have always been great neighbors. We have multiple generations of friendships between our families. Some friendships have been recently formed. Given the change to the landscape of our lakefronts, the sale of a few properties, and the subsequent cutting down of trees and removal of sheds, parking spots cut out, our lakefronts are very exposed to the street. The noise from traffic is louder than ever, and the line of cars waiting at the stoplight on the corner of Baldwin Place Road often extends to our properties. It's for these reasons that I totally understand and support the fence that they put up to shield their property and children from the noise, dangers of the street, and gawking car passengers. Not only don't we have a problem with the fence as it now exists, we were approached before it went up and asked if we mind. We appreciate the efforts being made by the town to make sure that the beauty of the lake is preserved and do not feel that this fence affects that in any way. Thank you, Elijah Andron. Okay, I open it up to the board members. John, you have any questions?
Just one, Bert. What kind of material is that fence made out of?
It is, it's not pressure treated, it's regular, so it's going to get stained. As soon as the piece of property next to us sells, I'll get permission from the new property owner to go in there and stain it. So we want to do a dark, rich stain, so it'll be a little nicer. I just couldn't do it this year because I can't go on that side of the property.
And does it have footings on it? Is it like 6-foot spacing on the post? Or
Yeah,
what is
they're
that?
6 foot, because they're standard 6 by 8 foot.
6 by
I'm sorry,
6.
they're 8 foot post spacing, 6 foot high fence. So it's a standard stockade fence.
No further questions.
Rose?
Have you thought about just screening, putting the 4-foot fence and just putting natural trees in or shrubbery?
So the way that I understand it, any kind of screening would have to be kept at 4 feet. So anything would be knocked down. So because of the elevation of the road, when you're sitting in a car, a 4-foot fence, you look right over it.
I know I've heard other cases before, because I've been on a long time, and it's always been a concern that when we give to one, then all of a sudden there's going to be a domino effect. And
Sure.
people are going to come in droves trying to get 6-foot fences. And if we have that happen, we won't be able to preserve the beauty of the lake because everyone will.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
So there's 2 points on that. One, that's already been done. There's already been a number of variances that have been created, so to stop now, it's already going. The other thing is there's a number of fences that do not have variances. So the fence next to us that was just taken down from 6 foot to 4 foot, that fence has been there since I was a little kid playing there. And they just got a letter after 40-something years of having a 6-foot fence there. They just got a letter, and they just took it down. They didn't know that they could come and do this and ask to be kept.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very big concern for me. I'm not, and the majority of the people in this room are not lakefront people. We can't afford that, obviously. So my concern is preserving the beauty for the whole community. And to put up a 6-foot fence is not really appropriate. I know other people have done things that weren't correct, that kind of sidestepped the code. And I do know of one house not far from you that we did grant a 6-foot variance, and that was because their house was very close to the road, so they had windows that were breaking. So we wanted to protect the safety of the people in the house. In this situation, I'm not sure I would agree with putting a 6-foot fence. I know I was on the board several years ago when another one close to you also came up before us, and I voted against it then, and I'm not sure I would change my view now. I understand your children and that kind of thing, but I also think that there are other ways to do it. I wouldn't be opposed to someone putting bushes, screening, something like that, something more natural. But to put a 6-foot fence, it concerns me that other people around the lake will start coming in, and I don't want it to be an open invitation for people.
I agree. I have pictures, in 250 East Lake Boulevard has a 6-foot fence on the front. It's a couple hundred feet of 6-foot fence. It completely blocks it. So I don't know that this would cause anything or be, it's less obtrusive than that fence.
Sometimes people circumvent the system in some ways, and
Yeah, I have the letter from the board approving that, saying that it wasn't a hardship that they created, and I have a letter
How long
of that
ago was it?
variance. I don't have the date on it, but I mean,
recent. I mean, I'm on 16 years.
I don't have the date. It's
Could
250 East Lake Boulevard. I can give you a picture. Here, it's right here.
Which one it is? Because, I mean, if it's 30 years ago,
That's right across from the church. That's 6 foot for.
that's been around for a while. It's been around for
And the
years.
fence next to me, that was 40 years. It's been there for 40
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I think the goal has been to try and get rid of these 6-foot fences. I think that's been what we've been hoping for, because if everybody did this, no one would see the lake.
What's your frontage width?
Go to the mic, please.
I'm sorry.
30 feet.
30 feet.
Anything more, Rose?
No, that's it.
Mark?
No questions. What about Bill and I? I was going to go this way.
We have no more questions from the board? Bill?
No questions.
Bill? Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Here, motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone from the public want to be heard on this application? No? I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Motion to close.
There you go.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, application 10, Mark Jacobs, contract vendee on Longview School for an interpretation of Educational Institution Section 156-23E, Town of Carmel zoning, which states a minimum of 10 parking spaces plus 3 spaces per classroom shall be required for those schools with pupils of elementary and junior high school age. Schools with pupils of at least high school age shall provide at least 20 parking spaces plus 5 per classroom. Property is located at 110 Scout Hill Road, Mahopac, New York, tax map 52.1-12.
They requested an adjournment, John?
Oh, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry. You could have cut me short before I had
I
to read
know
all
you're
that.
doing,
Thanks.
but you know what? I don't believe I read in for, should I do that?
No, it's something I've been doing
All
just
right.
for clarification
I'm
for
trying to
public.
keep it the same.
All right, so I'll look for a motion to hold that application over.
Motion to hold over.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Hold over. Keep things in order here.
Gotta work on that for you.
All right, and finally, this evening, application of Willowwood Country Club Incorporated for variation of section 156-24.d, seeking permission to obtain a variance for the below parking requirements for the existing parking lot in association with an amended site plan application pending before the planning board. Property is located at 551 Union Valley Road, Carmel, New York, and tax map 87.7-1-6, 7, and 11. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Williams. I'm with Insight Engineering, 3 Garrett Place, Carmel, New York, 10512.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, I don't need to swear you in, your counsel?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
George Calcadini. My office address is 376 Route 202, Somers, New York. I'm also an officer of Willowwood, specifically the secretary and the Sporting Clays chairman.
Okay. Who's going to take the helm?
I'm going to take the helm tonight.
All right.
So again, my name is Rich Williams. I'm with Insight Engineering with the site civil engineers for Willowwood Country Club. And as you may recall, in July, we came before you requesting 4 variances. 3 of them were granted. The one relative to the number of parking spaces was not. And tonight, we're here to present some additional information to you, present a little bit more granular information on the parking, why we came up with the number of spaces we did, and what alternatives we looked at. As the board may remember, we are proposing 250 members, and the parking code states that you have to have 2 spaces per member household, plus 1 space per faculty member. There are 2 faculty members, or 2 employees, I should say, of the club. So at 250 members, that would need 502 spaces. Willowwood Country Club is, I believe, a unique country club in that they don't offer multiple activities. It is mainly a shooting club. Although they offer 3 disciplines, it's not the type of club where they offer golf, tennis, swimming. It is primarily just a shooting club. So as we became involved in this project, we had to understand their operation and seek to understand what parking numbers were reasonable. The club has been in existence since the 1950s. It was expanded in 1981 to its current property by acquiring additional property around the original 11 acres. And what we found, the club currently has 202 members, or member households. We worked with the club last time George had presented parking statistics that were taken by the club. That was done in concert with our office to try and understand over the course of our involvement with the club what parking would look like. Because as we saw it, there are 3 parking conditions that need to be addressed with this club. The first is everyday use from the members who comes in, how many people come in, how many use the club on a daily basis when the club is open. I believe you're closed Tuesdays, correct?
We're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days a week.
Okay. The second condition that we wanted to understand is member events. So things like if you have a member competition or the annual meeting, for instance, what type of different population from the club would that draw, and how would that change the parking demand? The third event or condition that we saw was open events to members and non-members. For instance, if you have a competition. Breaking those 3 conditions down, what George presented to you last time was counts we had the club take every hour as opposed to us sending an engineer down every hour. And what we found with respect to Willowwood is they're kind of unique in that a very small percentage is actually active members that use the club on a regular basis. So during regular use, we found that there would be 20 to 40 cars. It peaked at 36. We're engineers, we're conservative, we said let's use 40. During member-only events, their largest event is their annual meeting, which is open to all memberships. It's a meeting where there's a lot of giveaways and raffles, so it draws a bigger crowd. They typically struggle to get between 30 and 50 members. Last year was actually their largest attendance at 58. So we said for condition 2, which are member-only events, we looked at 60 spaces. And then we started looking at condition 3, which is if you were going to have an open event that was open, like an open competition to members and non-members, how many people could potentially come in? Right now, the club can control that because when you do an open competition, you make people register. They're estimating an open event would bring in about 80 people. We're going to tell the board tonight that that number is 90 just to have a little factor of safety in that. So that starts to establish our demand. The next thing we looked at is what can the property actually sustain based on the existing conditions. We presented last time a layout that showed 80 standard parking spaces, and when I say standard, I want to be clear, I want to be 9 by 18, not 10 by 20, and a 9 by 18 variance was granted. So when we look at the first 2 conditions, everyday use, where we see 40 people come, 40 cars coming in at a peak, we have a factor of safety of 2 built in at that point. So we have enough parking spaces to support twice that. When I look at the second condition, a member-only event, and looking at their largest attendance, which is their annual meeting at 60, we still have a factor of safety of 1.3, or we can accommodate 30% more than they've seen. And when we look at open events, we actually provided in this submission an alternate layout, which shows a non-conventional parking layout with stacked spaces, because again, as a registered event, we can control parking. We can direct members to park in specific spaces, arrive early to help set up. if we do a stacked parking and use the areas around the lawn areas around the periphery of the gravel parking lot, we can fit 127 vehicles. Capping registration at 90, that also gives us a factor of safety of about 40% or 1.4. So we recognize that when you look at the code and it requires 502 spaces, and we're coming in and telling you we can provide 80 and 127, that's a substantial number. But I also think a factor here that we need to look at is, one, the uniqueness of this type of country club, and two, what the alternatives look like. And I'm going to point to the figure if I could. Looking at the property that Willowwood owns, we have Union Valley Road, north is up on this drawing. There is a strip on the northern piece of our property that extends to Union Valley, and we have our main driveway entrance in accessing off Union Valley here. It heads south to our parking area. Sorry, I'm going to actually grab the mic so I can see our own plan better. We have a gravel parking in this area and a clubhouse down in the southern portion. The existing trap fields are here, and the existing 5-stand is in this area. There is a New York State DEC wetland, which I've colored in green, and we've identified the associated 100-foot adjacent area in pink. As you can see, that covers much of the existing gravel driveway, approximately half of the existing parking area, and we believe there's additionally local regulated wetlands here, but they're outside our scope of work, so we didn't have them specifically delineated. That being said, the entire eastern portion of our property is constrained with a New York State DEC and Town of Carmel regulated wetland. As we move west into the property, everything shaded in gray is where the existing forest remains. Everything in white is where previous clearing took place. And you can see here, this is the trail that follows the sporting clay course. As you move into this western portion of the property, you have a valley through here, but the topography is extremely steep. Even to get up to that valley is a significant challenge. And if you've ever been to that site, you can quickly understand, basically from the parking area west, the topography prohibits you from building a parking lot, or even if you could get up to some of the plateaus, getting an access driveway up there would be infeasible due to the topography. One of the other places that we looked was at this northern strip, because that happens to actually be one of the flatter pieces of property and the potential to build an auxiliary lot there. There is a watercourse that crosses parallel to Union Valley Road and intersects straight through the property. That would be regulated by New York State DEC, Army Corps of Engineers, and the Town of Carmel. And as we looked at the potential to do something here, we believe if we had to, we could probably fit about 50 spaces. But we believe the impacts to the neighbors, as well as the impacts to the environment associated with the watercourse, outweigh the benefit of building that parking. Particularly when we factor in the last part, and that is, do we need the parking? You know, the club does not want to underbuild this site. We're before the planning board right now for a site plan application. You know, in order to run a successful club, the first thing you do when you enter a club is park. If we were short on parking, that would be the first thing we would address, because to be a successful club, you want to be able to accommodate your guests and make them feel comfortable when they arrive. We believe, based on the existing conditions, we have more than sufficient parking to support this specific club's needs and use. And, you know, while we recognize that that is a large number of spaces we're asking for a variance for, we believe in this specific instance it's appropriate and outweighs the environmental impacts. The last fact I just want to leave you with, if we had to build a conventional parking lot for 502 spaces, it would require about 4 acres. There's less than an acre of parking right now.
So this is the same number that you were looking for back in July?
The
On the
required
stand-
is the same.
The required is the same. The standard parking spaces, again, for condition 1 and 2, those 80 spaces, remains the same. But we believe, you know, we've also shown the 127 spaces, how that can be accommodated. And hopefully tonight, with our explanation of why we arrived at those numbers, it comes together. We believe adding more parking on the site, particularly with the environmental constraints, isn't a benefit to the environment. The club does try to be a steward to the environment, We also believe it's not needed.
The other significant thing is that we're
Speak to the mic, please.
we are proposing, and certainly would be appropriate to add it as a condition, we're saying that we will limit our registered shoots to 90 entrants. So that takes away, even if everybody came in their own car, which is unlikely, but if they did come in their own car, you'd only have 90 cars, so that the 127 event parking covers that. So that if your concern is that we were going to have hundreds of people come to a registered shoot, which, by the way, we're only planning on maybe 3 or 4 a year, but if we did that, we're saying we have the right to limit how many people register for an event, and we're amenable to that restriction.
The only problem is how do I enforce it?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way to enforce it from the town's point of view. If it's on a weekend or something, you know, someone had a complaint about it, they would have to call the police department and have them come. I don't know if that's enforceable. So it's like a self-imposed thing that is not enforceable by the town.
As a club, if you're going to hold an event to members outside your club and you can't park the people that are going to show up, that will be one of probably the last events you're going to hold because people won't continue to register. You know, they have an obligation to operate.
But that's not a burden on the town, that's a burden on the applicant. That's, I'm sorry to say.
No, it's true.
You know, you live within your means, you live with what, you know, your capacity is.
And that's our point coming here tonight with these facts is, you know, if we're going to impose the 90 spaces on ourselves because we recognize that we need to live within our means.
And by the way, Mr. Chairman, that is easily checked, because all registered sites, there's basically 2 sites that the NSCA registers, and I'm very familiar with this because I'm a national delegate and I'm also the chairman of the New York State Sporting Clays Association. There's basically 2 sites that are publicly accessible that you can go on. So if we're having Willowwood is having a shoot, you can go, Mr. Canaza the next day could go on the site and see exactly how many people were registered for that event.
The violation occurred after the effect.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The violation occurred after the event. That's sort of.
I understand, but
No.
we would get hit with a violation.
It's not enforceable, no matter how you slice it. So, but let's, is that all you have? I'll open it up to the board for questions.
If there's other issues or concerns that board members would have, I'd be happy to
I'm
address
going to
them.
open it up to the board. John, do you have any?
Yeah, just a question on Thursday through Sundays, your special events and members only. What time does that begin, the hours?
On Thursday, we are open at 10. On Fridays, we are open at noon. Saturday and Sundays, we open at 10. Winter hours are, we close at 5 o'clock. Summer hours at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Shooting stops a half hour before, 15 minutes to a half hour before closing time.
Okay. Thank you.
Rose?
You had talked about the Rochester event last time, and I know that's a tremendous meeting. What do you foresee as the number, and what numbers have you seen for smaller events?
Well, Rochester Brooks is an enormous gun club, and that's the state championship. New York is really only second to Texas in number of registered shooters. So that is an enormous event up there, and Rochester Brooks had 270 shooters, something like, no, I'm sorry, it was around 240.
At Rochester?
At Rochester, but that's an enormous facility. We are nowhere near that size. On the other hand, a much bigger club near us, in fact, I checked these numbers today, over in New Paltz, across the river, there's a place called Mid-Hudson. Again, very substantially larger than we are. In August, I shot there, and I just checked the numbers today. There was 72 shooters at that shoot.
To directly answer your question, this is that 90 number that we're proposing to impose on ourselves. We're going to cap our events at 90. The way we figured that number out, it's not magic. We have 14 stations. If you put 6 people per station, that's 84 people. And then there's an additional 6 alternates just in case. That's a responsible way to hold the event, and that's how we derive the number.
And you're not allowed to have bigger than 6-man squads. Just for a host of reasons, the NSCA does not permit squads bigger than 6 in a registered event. So 14 times 6 is the 84. We built in a little factor there, and we rounded off at 90.
Okay. What other events have you been to? What have the numbers been at other events?
I travel all over the world.
Okay.
You know, the local events will go anywhere from 30 to 100, depending on the size of the club. But, you know, a club of our size, it would be rare to have more than 80 people turning out at a small club like ours.
Even with Dover closing?
Dover was open to the public, and Dover was 3,000 acres. Dover had 2 full sporting clays courses, plus FITASC fields, plus 5 stands. That was just an enormous facility. That's not even remotely applicable to us, and that was open to the public, not a private club.
To the chairman's point earlier, the 90 limit that we're putting on ourselves has to do with living within our means. At 14 stations, there's only so many people we can actually hold. We recognize that.
But does everybody start off on number 1 and go around the track, or?
No, people do not start, on a registered event, people do not start all at the same station.
So you do like a shotgun start if it was golf?
It's a
Everybody goes to
shotgun
a different
start.
number, and then you just rotate around?
That is correct. That's exactly what you call it. Some events, if there's a very low turnout, you'll do what's called a European start, and then people go out and start on their own. They have their scorecard, but that's not a good way to run an operation. I don't think a European
Just
start is a
curious,
good way
I
to
didn't know
run.
if that was something that everybody starts at 1, because then they could be
And by the
really
way,
unlimited.
we're only talking about 3 or 4 times a year for these registered events.
How long does the event last?
About 3 hours.
See, that's not enforceable as well either. You could tell us that there's 3 or 4, you can have one every weekend. How do we know that?
The answer is, a registered event is online, and Mr. Kanaza, if you want, one is WinScore and the other is scoringpro.com, both.com. You can check them.
Do they run Saturday and Sunday typically? Or is it usually
As a
one-day
club, you
event?
can pick the day that you want them.
But they're not 2-day events.
They're
but
usually not 2-day
They're not
events.
2-day events. You get into a world championship, yeah, I was out in Chicago a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago now, for World English. That's a much bigger deal. It's the world championship, and everybody's coming in from all over the world, and that club is, I don't know, I think it's 700 acres. I'm not exactly sure, and they use every square inch of that 700 acres. An enormous club, an enormous facility. That's not even remotely us.
Yeah,
What's your acreage?
We have
just under 80, I
a
believe.
total of 85 acres, which the sporting clays course is about 75, I think.
So Willowwood has found a unique niche for themselves. While they have 202 members, when you actually look at their statistics, a very low percentage, about 15 to 20% of the membership, are actually active members that shoot. Of that, there is a core group of about 5 to 10 people, which when you start talking 15 to 20% of total population, which is 20 to 40 shooters, 5 to 10 is a large number. There's actually a smaller group of 5 to 10, such as George, that are serious competitors. So it's kind of found itself as a smaller club, more of focused people who are, committed to the sport.
And the ironic thing about us catering to the competitors, like this weekend, many of our members are down in New Jersey for a big shoot down at M&M Preserve. So on weekends, our high-volume shooters are away because from sometime in the spring until after Nationals in Texas coming up at the end of October, every weekend our high-volume shooters are away.
Can you show me on the map where the parking is now?
Sure. So this is where you come in off of Union Valley Road. The parking area starts here. I'm tracing the outer edge with my fingers and ends when you get to the clubhouse here.
And where on that map is 507 Union Valley?
Do you know the name?
507?
Perez Federico.
That is right here.
And you were thinking of putting parking over on that area, but you didn't want to? Or what was your concern about putting parking there?
One, we don't think it's neighborly. Two, there is a water course that is regulated by DEC, Town of Carmel, Army Corps of Engineers, which carries with it basically from this orange line north, all sits within a wetland buffer. So we would have stream crossings, water course crossings, New York City DEP setbacks to contend with. From an environmental standpoint, it would be a very regulated area. We would have to go to those agencies and demonstrate that we need the parking. And part of why we're here tonight is we don't believe we need the parking.
Need a microphone.
Just hand the mic to him.
Need a microphone.
Use the microphone.
There are two houses on either side of this 1.25 acre strip. I believe this person's name is Palumbo, and Perez is here, and then there's another house up here. This strip is heavily wooded. It's a mature woodland area, provides nice buffer area for these neighbors. We don't physically need the parking for our operations, and the neighbors aren't going to want to look at a 50-car parking lot over here.
To physically grade that in, you would need substantial amount of retaining walls that would get to be about 6 feet in height on either side. Sure. To physically build that lot, not only would you be crossing the water course, cutting the trees, you'd also need a substantial amount of retaining walls on either side that would start to get up to the 6 feet in height mark. When we start to put all those factors together, while you could physically do it, it comes with a lot of environmental regulations. It comes with being a good neighbor, and we don't believe the need's there.
How is this application any different from July's application?
First, we've started to talk about the alternatives. That was one of the things that when you issued the denial, you cited. And we've explained how constrained the property is and why we can't physically locate other parking in other areas. The second is we've gotten more granular as to why we believe the variance is appropriate as far as what our parking needs are versus what the code requires. We've also added the special event parking plan, and we've identified those 3 levels of parking criteria and how in the first 2 we meet, we have more than enough with a factor of safety of 2 in condition 1 with everyday use, 30% extra parking for special event member-only use, and we've provided a plan for the open event condition where we have a factor of safety of 40% built into that.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
What are you allowed right now? What's allowed right now?
In terms of, I don't get you.
Membership?
We have 202.
We have 202.
At the time we filed, it varies all the time, a little bit. Some new members come in, others leave.
Right.
Somebody passed away, nobody. So it fluctuates, but when we filed the application, the number was 202.
When you filed the application recently,
Right.
when it was initially established and approved, what was allowed?
On your previous site plan, what was the approval for on the previous site plan?
I don't know that number.
I did not see that number on the site plan.
So there might have been 80 people, or 70, something like that, or?
Back, just a guess, there would have been less members in the 80s, but I don't know that for a fact. But it's a guess, but it's purely a guess.
Okay. Bill?
No question.
Just refresh my memory, how many parking spots do you have now?
We can fit 80 standard 9x18 spaces.
No, but but traditional parking now, what do you have
Traditional.
today?
80.
Traditional,
80, okay.
80 spaces.
And 127 event parking plan.
No questions.
All right, you guys all set? I'm going to open it up to the public for any comments, questions, or concerns. Gents, do you guys mind moving that so I can see if anyone's raising their hands? Ma'am, state your name and address for the record, and when you're done, please sign the form.
Surely. My name is Patricia Perez. I live at 507 Union Valley
Raise
Road.
your right hand, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help
I
you God.
do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was in front of this board in the July meeting expressing my opposition to the variance, specifically to the parking spaces, since it's related to the planning board application. This club is looking to expand in order to survive from 202 members to 250. In the previous application, the representative of the club said that they're trying to attract people from Dover for special events. This is all related to the fact that they build the 14-station traps without permits. When that happened, we, the neighbors, didn't understand what had changed. We thought it was the cutting of the trees because the noise level was unbearable to us. My questions to you is, do we trust the club to police themselves? There will be no enforcement like you mentioned before. They build these traps without permits. Do we trust them to police themselves to say, we're gonna keep the events to 90 people? Do we trust that the events are gonna be once, 4 times a year? I have many concerns, the quality of life issues, property values, and since I was here last speaking in front of you, I have received several letters from the representative of the club. The issue being a part of our land where there's an easement. My husband and I had a storage shed in the property that was the gun club's property. We had gotten permission about 20 years ago to erect it. I received correspondence from George Calcarini saying, we are reducting our permission, you need to remove this shed and a vehicle, and we did in a timely manner. The reason why they were asking us to do this is because we, Perez and Federico from 507 Union Valley Road, were not being good neighbors to them because we were voicing an opposition to you. So we dealt with the shed, we dealt with the vehicle, I thought we were done. On September 16, I received another letter from the representative of the club, and if I have your permission, Mr. Chairman, I gave you a copy.
Yeah, we're forwarded the copies.
I wanted to put it on the record. Now Mr. Calgarini is questioning whether we are using their land for our parking. That we will deal with between the attorneys. But I would like to bring your attention to page 2, where Mr. Calgarini is asking me to contact him to discuss this in an amicable way to resolve this issue. Because if I persist on opposing this variance for a number of cars, he will be forced to build a parking lot on the access strip right next to the property. That access strip that they said that they have an acre and change between these two properties. So that would actually make your lives worse. And then it goes on to say, and I think you will find that it will be beneficial to you to sit down and work with us to find an amicable solution to your noise and other concerns, rather than to get into an adversarial situation with us. Well, to me, this is bullying behavior, okay? They are reacting, they're trying to silence my voice and my family's voice from coming and oppose this in front of your board and in front of the planning board. This is unacceptable to me. I really doubt that any board would allow them to build 50 parking spaces in an acre of land between two properties in the middle of a residential zone. So I find this as an intimidation tactic that is really not appreciated. I just wanted to give you this information, not to show you that there is a neighbor's dispute. That is not the issue. To show you credibility and character of the people that are coming forward to this board and saying, no, we will keep it to 90. Well, these kind of letters, this kind of intimidation, I would not trust them to police themselves. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think the board recognizes it with the documentation that you provided.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to be heard? You can state your name and address in the other microphone, and then write it down before you leave the podium, please.
Hi, my name's Graham Cooper. I'm a neighbor from the south. I live on 8 Wilson Road in Somers.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight regarding...
Just turn the mic up.
Oh, this way?
There you go, yep.
Better? Okay. I'm here regarding the expansion of the gun club, which tonight we're talking about parking spaces. Before this, they expanded on their own. I'm directly affected by the shooting, the increase in shooting. I don't know what they can tell us exactly as to the volume of rounds that go off, but I've been directly affected by the gun club and their expansion. Because of this, in my house, when I'm standing in my family room, I can actually feel the percussion from the shots coming across the hill. So my question is...
Would you mind just giving us a reference on the site map of where you are?
Right up. Right here. Over on this corner.
Okay.
Which street you want again? Wilson Road?
It's off of Shindagan, or
Yeah, it's in Somers, Shindagan, I think.
all of there's one.
Yeah, Warren at that point,
Sorry,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So because of this, I do a lot of engineering and planning and design and project management. The first thing I wanted to do was set a base for the difference in the volume. And I did the research on the sound ordinances in place in Mahopac or Carmel, already in place. And I set up a meter and I measured the decibels that were occurring at my property line. And 200 feet from my house, it's 89 dB. Now, 60 dB of a percussive blast is what this town ordinance states it should be at the property line between the hours of 8 and 6, I think it is. So that would be 90 dB is 10 to the third power as loud as 60 dB. My question is, how is the town going to enforce this for the residents of Somers? That was 1,800 feet from where the new course was developed. My property actually, I think, hits the corner. If I measured there, I was over 90 dB.
Your property was over 90?
Up in the very corner that I think touches the property with the club. Now, I've been there 15 years, and this didn't happen until the expansion.
All right, so that's not an issue in front of this board for our review, but I'm sure that can be handled through the police department.
And
I went to the police department prior. They told me to go see the building inspector.
at the planning board also, which I'm not dumping it on, well, yeah,
Okay.
I'm not dumping it on the planning board, but that's something that should be told to the planning board at that public hearing also.
Okay.
That's something that needs.
And I'll do whatever I have to as far as engineering. I'll have a licensed audiologist come up and record it. The problem is on the weekend, how do you do that? Because that's when all the shooters are not around, as you stated. But somehow, it's incredibly loud on the
Just
on the
address the
weekends.
board, please.
I'm sorry. But somehow, it's incredibly loud on the weekend.
Well, especially if there's going to be an event.
Yeah.
But,
And with more parking spaces. And more areas to shoot. And higher up on the hill.
Okay.
Aiming at my house. I'm not opposed to shooting it in any way, shape, or form. I just think it's kind of crazy when you have hundreds and hundreds of rounds, and I have to sit there and bear while people with hearing protection on are shooting into the sky and into the power lines. They shoot directly at the power lines.
Okay.
So what's my recourse from here? What should I do?
I think you might, this wouldn't go to the planning board unless we
It's at the planning board now. It was
they
referred
currently-
here by the planning board.
Yeah,
That's
so
something that you
your
definitely need to
concerns are
speak
more
about
for-
there.
Planning board review.
And they'll address the concerns of a Somers resident?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
They'll listen to it, absolutely. Now, the notification process for, I think it goes to your town clerk, if I'm correct? It goes to your town clerk, not to every resident in the town of Somers. That's within the distance, so.
Okay.
You may want to check with my office or the planning department to find out when it's on the agendas.
Okay, will do.
Anybody else wish to be heard? Ma'am?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Ford, 20 Fox Hill Road, Mayapack, New York.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thanks.
We bought our house about 8 years ago, and
Speak to the-
I just wanted to say how much the noise has increased, and the idea of additional parking and more people, and the idea of it just continuing to be more gunshots and more. I'm not opposed to shooting either, but I just think that to increase the amount and already how much I've already heard it increase, and then the idea of it being even more, I can't even stand in my yard without hearing so much gunfire already. And I just really wanted that to be said to, just in the matter of 8 years, it's a completely different place on the weekends. I mean, all the gunfire, it's just nonstop during the hours of operation. So I more just wanted to give a statement more than a question, but it just definitely is a really big concern. More. It's just like, when is it ever going to be enough? And these promises that it's, limited parking, and it can't be, especially on the weekends. Calling the police, I feel like nobody's there to even respond to these things when their hours of operation are.
Okay, and that could be assimilated to the variance that's in front of us tonight. So we appreciate your concern and your voice. Again, that would be the planning board where you can really speak more to that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard, ma'am? Name and address, please.
Karina Jurek, 18 Fox Hill Road in Mayapack.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
I live here for 25 years, and for the last couple of years, this excessive noise coming from Willowwood Club, which already has 202 members, has changed our lives to what we call, and I call, nightmare. Their activities made impossible for me and my family to be outside or inside of our home, because it feels like we are in the middle of a war zone. We are basically forced to leave our home for several hours and come back after club is closed. I am sure that other residents are experiencing the same. This is not what we call normal life. We lost at least 3 years, I'm sorry, I'm being emotional.
That's fine.
We
Take your
lost
time.
at least 3 years of our normal lives because of Willowwood activities. How Willowwood will compensate us for that lost time? How Willowwood will compensate us for the amount of stress caused by this extensive noise we have been experiencing during those last couple of years, and for medical issue already caused by that prolonged stress. Hundreds of thousands of dollars is already lost in our house's value because of that situation. How Willowwood will compensate us for that? Again, all this is happening when they have 202 members. Club is asking for parking variance, which will give them instant and legal right to increase number of members by 25%. 25% from 202 to 250 legal members. If club will get that variance, they do not have to spend any money for very costly parking project. But for us, living in this area, with additional 50 active legal members will be beyond hell. Please remember that new members will be allowed to bring guests too. We hope that your fair decision about this variance will stop additional noise in our residential area. And for your information, I stopped by this club in May of 2018. It was actually second week after my surgery, and I was trying to recover at my house, but with that noise, it was impossible. So woman who worked there at this time, she told me that they increased number of members, and she also told me that building inspector was at this place month earlier. He did measure noise level and everything was fine. I told her I will go and check with building inspector, which I did. And they gave me false information. So we chose to live in this area many years ago because we fell in love with everything here. Many years of living and simply enjoying our normal life was suddenly taken away from us by Willow Woods a couple of years ago. We are all working hard in order to pay our mortgages and property taxes. And we feel like we're being punished for something actually we didn't do. I'm sorry, this is like, sorry for being emotional, but it already took toll on my
That's fine, we
health.
understand.
Thank you.
Just, yeah, be sure to write. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard from the public on this application? Sir? He raised his hand first. What?
Just realized it's very late, so I'll have a quick statement.
Yeah, please, if it's going to be similar facts. Yeah.
John Nurek, 18 Fox Hill Road, Mayapack.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth,
Yes,
so help you God.
I do. I spoke on this board meeting last time, and actually,
Just turn the
I
mic
was
up,
emotional as well, so I prepared a written statement instead, very short one. Chairman, members of the board, it doesn't take a PhD to recognize that we have a problem here. Dozens of hardworking town of Carmel taxpayers, and also town of Somers, turns out, are frustrated with their noisy neighbor who disregards New York State noise control laws and ordinances, neighbor who refuses to recognize that surrounding residents are not necessarily connoisseurs of the loud music played by their shotguns all day long, neighbor who shouldn't be here in the first place. It's absurd to have open-air gun shooting facility in the middle of the residential area, isn't it? It just doesn't make sense. Why on earth make this problem 25% bigger? Please do not. Do not approve variance which will very shortly lead to more club members, more noise, more problems. Let's try to work together on making this problem rather smaller than bigger. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just write your name on that sign-in sheet, please. Sir? Name and address for the record. You can speak into that, Micah.
My name is Jim Comiotis. I live on 59 Eleanor Drive, Mahopac, New York.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
So, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a member of that club. I joined about 2.5 years ago when Sporting Clays was introduced, and specifically because Sporting Clays was introduced. I have lived in Mahopac since, well, previous time a lot longer than that, but at the house that I'm at since 93. So what is that, 20 some odd years? And I have heard the shooting from that club throughout that period of time. I haven't heard a significant change in volume. And by the way, a shotgun shell will produce a certain amount of volume. If I have 100 of them, it doesn't get louder. There's more of them, but it doesn't get louder. That's physics. I think there was an engineer speaking earlier
Just adjust the
that
board, please.
discussed the volume, but that's how it works. If a truck is X loud, it's only going to be X loud. If there's 100 of them, it doesn't get louder. It's just more of them.
Frequency.
So I just wanted to make that point. I know this isn't about noise, but everybody else spoke about noise, and I just wanted to go on the record with that. This club has been there a long time, so unless you bought your house way back in the early 50s, you have lived with that club. That the last 4 or 5 months, there's been no Sporting Clays shooting. yet people still complain about the noise. It's the noise that has existed prior to that, prior to sporting clays, and it's the noise that will continue to exist if we decide we're not going to have sporting clays. So I don't know what people, what new noise we're talking about. I haven't experienced it, and I've lived here for quite a few years. I view this
How far from the property do you live?
I'm sorry?
How far from
I
the
don't live
property?
as close as perhaps some of the people. I'd say as the crow flies, about 0.8 mile.
Yeah, so pretty significantly far from some of the
Sorry?
neighbors. Very significantly further from what the
Very
neighbors...
significantly further,
Yes,
but what I'm
okay.
saying, I heard them in '93. I hear them today. I don't hear a big difference. Sometimes I don't hear them because the wind is blowing in a certain direction. Sometimes I hear them, it's a little louder.
Okay.
That's a fact. Okay?
What else you got?
Have you,
Have they increased the amount of
go ahead.
stations there? Simple, the simple question. They've
Yes.
increased the amount of stations, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't hear well. Number of stations, yes.
By 14.
Yeah. Yes, we've increased the number of stations. So,
Is it on?
I wanted to say that the club, I view the club as an asset. It's a facility where youngsters can go and learn how to handle weapons safely, respect them properly, and build some confidence in themselves, and maybe spend a little time away from the little gimmicks that they're playing with all the time indoors, watching TV or whatever it is they're doing. I think it's a fresh air activity that's available to our community that should be allowed to exist. Then there was somebody who came up here and talked about the character of the people in that club. I don't want to go through my bio, but there's nothing wrong with my character. I take objection as somebody talking on the record about the character of the people that go to that club. My character is perfectly fine. I'm a veteran.
I don't think anyone was questioning the board members or the membership character, just one person. So
Well,
keep that in mind.
You know, I can become a board member someday, you know?
Thank you for your service.
So, and then I guess the other thing, I was surprised to hear that when a representative of the club asked can we settle this amicably, the word amicable, if I understand it correctly, is that we're friends. It comes from French, ami, and...
I'll give you a copy of this, and you could decide for yourself. That's what I took from it, from the
Okay,
letter that we
but,
got, so.
so I don't know if I
you're
consider
privy
it
to that.
bullying, is saying, hey, we don't want to have to build next to you,
Nobody's calling you a bully.
all right? So, anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Sign it.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this application? I guess I'll forward the opportunity for counsel and the applicant to respond. As briefly as possible, please. Oh, ma'am, I didn't see you raise your hand. I'm sorry. Did you wish to come to be heard? Come to the microphone, please. Name and address for the record.
Eileen Martinelli, 491 Union Valley Road.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
I have to disagree with the volume of noise. I've lived at that address since 1986, and we've heard the shooting, and it was like an echo. It didn't really bother us. We were curious what it was, and it didn't take very long before we realized there's a shooting club, and it was not loud. It did not bother us. You just vaguely heard it. Once the trees came down, the volume has been unbearable. You stand in my yard and you can't enjoy, which we've talked about, I've heard mentioned before, being outside. It has killed any joy of sitting outside when they are shooting. And I agree, I don't know where they've been the last month, few weeks, but probably with this coming up, they've not been there. But the noise prior to that
And after those trees came down, it was exacerbated to the point where it's unbearable. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know that there were barriers put up that should have been put up when the trees came down. And I don't know if there was ever permission granted for that or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, last call for public. Going once, going twice. Thank you. Applicant, please.
Can I ask you a quick question before you start? How many spaces are there right now?
It is a gravel lot that is not marked out. So we had to do our best to assess that. We came up with 80. So we are not proposing to modify the parking lot.
And you're not looking to add any more other than the 80 that are there right now?
And in the special event parking, we would be using the lawn areas surrounding for overflow.
All right, thank you.
No problem. I heard a lot of comments on noise and other things. I believe that's a planning board issue. We are eager to work through this variance with this board. To get back to the planning board, we are ready to work with the neighbors to help mitigate the noise. We've been talking to building inspector about additional sound barriers and things of that, and we do believe that's a discussion that is appropriate to have with the planning board.
Okay, that's not solely a planning board issue. Noise is part of
Quality.
the factors that we have to
Understood.
weigh and test here, so.
Which is why, as we sat and heard the comments, I had talked to Mr. Calcagnini, and ultimately getting back to the planning board is our focus. And if talking about limiting the membership or reducing it from that 250 is something that helps this board weigh in on its decision, it's a discussion we're open to. Do you have any questions for us?
Board members?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counsel, you're all set? Okay. All right, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
Just to follow up on Mr. Williams' comment, we would be amenable to condition capping the membership at the 202 number.
What about less?
Who is it that you want to throw out of the club?
Just saying.
You can't do that.
Okay.
We can't do that.
Okay.
You said that you only have 15% people that show up on a regular basis, so obviously there's people that aren't coming.
The problem is the calculation's based on the number of member households, not the number of people that show up. Just so you know, it's based on the total number, it's not a.
Gotcha, okay.
And that's why tonight we tried to demonstrate that we do believe we have adequate parking. And again, there is a willingness to work with everyone here.
Just speak to the mic, sorry.
And that's why, we came tonight trying to convince this board that we do have adequate parking at the facility. And reducing that number to current membership levels even helps support that further, because we know the club functions well today. We don't have current parking problems.
Okay.
And reaching out to neighbors to find out what their concerns are, willingness to sit down with them, talk about noise mitigation measures, telling them what we were planning on doing. The fact that my offer to sit down and talk was rebuffed, that's on them. That's not on me. And a neighbor who chooses to use your property, dump garbage on, build sheds on, they don't have a right to be on our property.
Understood.
Can I ask another question? The reason why you cleared all that property was in hopes of expanding the shooting area to increase membership? Is that
No,
the
to
ultimate
put in
goal?
another sport, sporting clays, which is,
Oh, it's a different kind of shooting?
it's a different sport. A shotgun sport, but it's a different type of shotgun shooting. Trap is very regimented targets. The targets are always within a narrow field, always going on the same trajectory. Sporting clays is an entirely different type of sport where the targets can literally be doing anything. They can be going at 90-degree angle, they can be rolling on the ground, they can be going straight up, they can be dropping down, and going at all sorts of different angles and projections. So the shooter has to learn to instantly learn the geometry of it, and the speeds are different, the sizes of targets are different, different shapes, so they perform differently. Targets can curve in different directions. So this is a different sport. You have to have different techniques, many different techniques where it's trapped. You basically have one main technique. This is a sport of very numerous techniques and skills, and there's a cognitive element to it that you have to learn to instantly adapt.
Is it a different kind of gun that you're using that's causing more of the noise?
No,
or is it
they're
the
all
same?
shotguns. The guns are themselves, trap guns are very much one-trick ponies, and they're made to shoot just going-away targets, but they're all shotguns. They make the same level of noise. Just that trap guns are set up differently. Now we're getting into technical stuff that really isn't important here. They all make the same amount of noise. But where the trees were cut is completely on the other side of the hillside from where the neighbors were complaining on Union Valley. There's an entire mountain between them and the neighbors that are complaining. The cutting of the trees had no effect on that whatsoever because there's a mountain in the way.
If you look at the plans, that's why we brought the shaded plan this evening, so you could understand the topography and where the tree clearing occurred. The white area here is where the tree clearing occurred, and it sits in a valley between a high point here and a very large hillside here. And that pushes the noise towards the club.
So what do you attribute this noise difference to? If they're saying it's because of the cutting of the trees, what do you attribute it to?
I attribute it to the people deciding to try and force out a gun club that they don't like there in the first place.
You don't think that there's been any change in the...
No, in fact, I heard
frequency?
people from Fox Hill, and I was over there the other day, and I had somebody fire some shots. And from Fox Hill, where Fox Hill intersects with Union Valley, you literally cannot hear the gunshots at all. And for the people who are on the far end of Fox Hill, it's not going to.
Hey, I've closed the public hearing. If you're going to not comply, I'm going to ask you to leave.
Literally, the noise of a truck going by on the road at Englewood, the noise from trucks is louder than the gunshots.
So you don't think there's any change in your eyes?
I don't see any change whatsoever, but we are willing to, and an issue that we're going to be addressing before the planning board is we have plans to build sound barriers and do noise mitigation works, and that's something that we're going to be bringing up and addressing with the planning board, different things to build as well as berms and plantings. There's a lot that's going on. And if people would have sat down with me, I would have explained all that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. I'll look for a motion to
Thank you.
close the public hearing on this application.
Motion to close.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? All right, we're going to take a brief recess, and we'll reconvene in a few minutes.
Learn about how they used to be. Right, John? The late nights?
Craig's gone, right? We can take his microphone? Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, so it's supposed to see?
Yeah, I think so. Mine works.
That's live.
Where's Bill?
One for over there. I think Rose and John need one.
You guys, your mics are dead?
Thank you. Yeah, we'll share.
Operator, I can't see you. Let me know when you're ready. You want to open that door? Oh, you're filming? Filming 11, almost. Okay, I'll remind everyone, there's no further input from the public on any application as we adjudicate. Public hearings are closed at this point. So let's go through the agenda. Holdover application, Genic Property Management Corp. I'll look for a motion.
Motion to deny?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Hold on one second. Applicant is looking for a use variance, which, as the chairman read into the record earlier, the applicant must prove all the following. Number one, incapable of earning a reasonable return if used for any of the allowable uses, and money amounts must be shown. Counsel for the applicant provided a memorandum of law that included financials, and I believe that the financials or an attempt to prove this category, but it's silent as to the capability of earning a reasonable return. So I do not believe that that portion of the requirements was proven. Number two, the property is affected by unique or at least highly uncommon circumstances. I don't believe that comes into play, and whether it's was proved or not, it should not be an issue. Number three, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I believe that if we do grant the use variance, it will definitely alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Whether the matter was self-created, again, does not even have to be considered. As I said, all of these factors need to be proven, and I believe there was definitely not a 100% proving here that the first category and the third category, the essential character of the neighborhood, and the reasonable term was not proven. So based on that, I believe we have no other choice but to deny.
All right, does anybody have a response or anything to add to Phil's comments?
No, I think he summed it up well.
I'll do a roll call vote. Mark? Wait, for the motion or against it?
For.
So, I'll roll call the board.
For the motion. For the motion. For the motion.
For the motion.
For the motion.
And I'm for the motion as well, so this is denied. Application 2 and 3 were held over. Application number 4, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to grant.
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
Yeah, I think we
Oh,
had
we amended
discussed
that
changing it to 5-foot variance.
Yeah, motion to grant.
Yes,
amended.
so granted as amended?
Correct.
Yes.
And Bill, you second that? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
So
granted.
you granted 5 feet? I'm sorry, I just want to make
Yes,
sure.
it was 5 feet.
The application was changed.
Yeah.
All right, application number 5, Conchatori, look for a motion.
Is there a condition we were talking about on that one?
Yes, there was a condition with that to remove the railroad tied
Let's make a motion first. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to grant with the condition that the applicant will remove the railroad ties that were straddling or on the neighbor's property.
All right, do I have a second to that?
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, granted, thank you. Number 6, Nemeth.
Those holdover calls.
That was held over.
That's right. Number 7, Fox.
Motion to grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, granted. Number 8, Alfaro. Look for a motion.
Motion to grant?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's granted. Number 9, I recuse myself. Phil, take that over.
Okay, do I have a motion for number 9, the application of Bert Melchner?
Yeah, motion to grant.
Okay. Any discussion, or a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bill. Any discussion?
I really feel strongly that this could create a lot of problems for us. We've really tried to keep the fences low, and by granting this variance, we will now be, we could have potential problems in the future with other property owners. A 6-foot fence will certainly prevent people from seeing the lake, and I would hate to see others being affected by it. The community will be affected by not being able to see the lake in this particular spot and anywhere around the lake.
Thank you, Rose. Any other discussion? Roll call vote. John?
Well, I move to grant the variance.
You're for the motion. Rose?
Against the motion.
Silvio?
For the motion.
Bill?
For the vote.
Mark?
Against the motion.
And I'm for the motion as well. So it's granted.
Okay, number 10 was held over as well.
Did that motion carry?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, 4 votes carries. All right, and number 11, Willowwood Country Club will look for a motion.
Motion to deny.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? The applicant here is looking for a area variance. We are, as a board, must consider the following. Number 1, will an undesirable change in the character in the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties be created by granting the variance? Number 2, can any other method be used that does not require a variance but still allow for the benefit requested? 3, is proposed variance substantial? Will the proposed variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? And 5, is the alleged difficulty self-created? In no particular order, is the difficulty self-created? I believe that's a yes, in my opinion. Is the proposed variance substantial? I believe that is a yes. We are looking at a variance of 422 standard spaces and 375 special event spaces. Can any other method be used that does not require variance but will allow for the benefit requested? There was some discussion on that, and I believe that there is. Will an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties be created by granting of the variance? We're not here to discuss noise complaints. I don't believe that that would be an issue for me. Will the proposed variance have an adverse effect or impact on environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I don't believe that comes into play either. Taking all of them into consideration, I believe that the variance, the application should be denied.
Okay, any response or addition to those comments? Nope. All right, I'll do roll call vote. John? You're for the motion to deny.
He's tired.
Rose? Bill?
For the motion.
Obviously. Bill?
For the motion.
For the motion.
Silvio?
For the motion.
For the motion as well, so this is denied. Okay. Thank you all. Meeting minutes from July. I'll look for a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or issues?
No.
All right, thank you all. We'll see you next month, October. You guys are all good for October? Did anybody,